We're going to start our own investigation. We're going to put together a fund here on this channel that you could donate to, and know that is going to be strictly for the cost of investigative efforts, private eyes, and all that.
We're all accustomed to talking about slander, defamation, and reckless accusations between strangers on the internet. And it might be a little more challenging for you to think about the effects of this type of allegation within your own family.
What you may have heard that happened was he had a heart attack. Okay? But if that is true, we don't know what caused that heart attack. We don't know if it was induced. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing of the such. My brother didn't have a history of heart disease. He didn't have a history of health problems. I'm not buying the heart attack narrative. I'm not buying the heart attack narrative, and I'm going to tell you even more the reason why I'm not buying the heart attack narrative, because I'm not a dummy.
My grandfather, I was told as a child, was murdered by my great uncle. I grew up with and lived with this allegation of murder in my own family. Just nobody seemed to think this was a problem. Like, nobody seemed to think it was a big deal to tell a kid that there was murder within their own family. For me, there's this sense of like, have you no shame? Like, don't you think it's a big deal to make this kind of accusation up against another person, either with no evidence at all, or in some cases contrary to the little bit of evidence that you've got?
It's unfair to lie to the world and tell the world that this man died of a heart attack. Okay? So now that we got that out the way, some of you might say, well, who was he last with? Okay? I've seen that question going around a lot. The last person he was with was the girl. You know, I'm not going to advertise her name here. For those who know, you know. So that's who he was with.
It was impossible for my great uncle to have murdered my grandfather. It would have been beyond James Bond 007 levels of assassination if he had killed him. But I should mention briefly, like, that great uncle of mine, he had 2 sons. Both of them went to prison for long jail sentences. Doesn't mean the father is guilty. You know, if your kids committed crimes, and by the way, they were not poor. They were much wealthier than my family. That branched the family. So, you know, yeah, it was strange. Doesn't mean you're guilty. Doesn't mean it's reasonable to make up a story that he committed murder. Just to be fair, I remember that guy. I remember my great uncle. And you know, just his manner of speaking to you, he seemed like a suspicious character. It's completely shallow. It's completely unreasonable. But yeah, I can imagine how people's imagination gets rolling, and there was a conflict between him and my grandfather, and it had gone on over years. You know, I get it. But as soon as I started asking questions, you know, I really just had this sense of like, how dare you? And don't you feel like there are really serious consequences within the family and for other people for a long time to make up this kind of lie, to spread this kind of slander?
So we have people that are in the country that are actually allowed to kill people and lie about it and put it on the news, put the lie on the news, cover it up, and everybody go back to doing what they was doing.
Laoshu, 55,000, this YouTuber. Some people, immediately after his death, alleged suicide or suspected that it was suicide. A few days later, his own brother came on the internet and entirely seriously alleged that it was murder. And he's now accepting donations to have a full murder investigation. The most important lie that his story relies on, and that his fundraising campaign relies on, and that his investigation relies on, is the notion that Laoshu 55,000 did not have any health problems, didn't have any chronic health conditions that would foretell or explain or make it plausible for him to suddenly die of a heart attack around 39 or 40 years of age. And that is not true.
And then Saturday, I had a stroke, and I recovered from it well. I was actually surprised when I was told that I had a stroke. I was in the hospital. But Saturday, I was feeling a little dizzy. I had like a little headache, and I told my friend, I said maybe we should go get some food. So we went to this place. We went to this Popeyes, and I got something. I ate a little bit, and then I felt like I want to eat more, so I ordered more. And then the lady was about to take my order, and I started feeling I started feeling lightheaded. So I put my head down for a minute, and she was like, "Are you okay, sir?" So I told her to give me a minute. So I thought it would go away, and it started getting worse. So I laid on the ground just to prevent from falling. I thought I was gonna fall. I didn't want to hit my head or anything. So I laid on the ground, and then next you know it, then the ambulance was there. They put me on a stretcher, and they were asking me questions. And I found it difficult. It was really difficult to speak and move and stuff. It was crazy. It was a crazy experience. And yeah, I went to the hospital. I was like, man, I was just telling myself I couldn't wait to get to the hospital so I could see what the heck this was. Because I had similar symptoms before when I was at home. They didn't get that bad, but I remember I had a headache, and my vision started to blur a little bit, like I was going blind or something.
Laoshu had a stroke around age 34. When his brain was scanned, I assume this was MRI and X-ray and what have you, they found evidence that he'd had 3 strokes, i.e. it was probably the 3rd stroke that put him in hospital. He had brain damage from that. And it was an ischemic stroke. If you think that an ischemic stroke at age 34 does not powerfully predict ischemic heart disease at age 39, I would suggest you take some time and look up the meaning of the word ischemic. People die suddenly. People die unexpectedly. When my grandfather died, he'd been talking to my grandmother. She asked him if he wanted anything from the kitchen. And he said something like, yeah, I'll get some Rice Krispie squares. She walked out of the room. She then stopped and turned around and come back to ask, do you want a cup of coffee with that? It's just middle chit-chat. He had died in the few split seconds between her walking out of the bedroom and then coming back to ask again that question. All right? It can be shocking. It can be disturbing, and your imagination may run wild. You may think it's not possible that these are just natural conditions leading to someone's death, but that's probably because you don't have a whole lot of experience with what the natural conditions of death look like.
When I got to the hospital, they did some tests and stuff, and they were like, yeah, you had a stroke, Mr. McCormick. And I was like, I had a what? I had a stroke. Are you sure? And they said, yeah, we're confused too. You're young. You're too young to have something like this, but it can happen to anybody. And it's called a ischemic stroke.
Life is fragile. When Laoshu was in hospital with the stroke, he reflected that he had a very unhealthy diet. He reflected that he had been eating Popeye's deep fried chicken on the day of the stroke that put him in the hospital. And life is not fair. Some people can cope with the cholesterol of a deep fried chicken diet for decades, and some people can't. It's very easy to look at the statistics for seatbelts and say to yourself, well, it's not going to happen to me. And the sad fact is, you don't get to choose. Sadly, when Laoshu was in hospital after having that ischemic stroke, what the doctors told him was that his cholesterol was within the normal range and that it was therefore no problem. What you don't know genetically is what's normal for you. What you don't know is what's tolerable for you, because the human ability to tolerate cholesterol varies wildly on the basis of your genetics. It's something you're born with, or it's something you're not. And the safest possible diet is a zero cholesterol diet. Not vegetarian, but vegan.
My slang is editorial, explicit material, briefcase show, live and stereo flow, feel me.